I remember the Straight Eight quite well. She was owned by the pub and run by the pub. It was a pretty little boat. It was an open boat, like a cooter boat. The first thing you do when you got aboard the boat, they had to hoist the sail up. Robbie Warren was the skipper of the boat and he was my uncle. And we used to knock around a lot together. He had the use of that boat for professional fishing, providing that he looked after the impies, the publicans. And when they wanted a day out fishing, they got a day out fishing. And all the fish that he caught, the first lot of that fish would go to the impies first. Come into the wharf and he'd clean all that fish and have it immaculate, And he'd go up to the hotel, George, the publican. He would pick out what he wanted out of the fish and then we'd cart the fish all around Eden. There was no motor cars or anything to deliver the fish. It had to be done by hand and walking, No refrigeration or no ice or nothing. He'd just have a tea tree bush to keep the flies away from the fish while we were delivering them around to town. I just started to fish myself at that time. I left school at 13. It's about 70 years ago. I started drinking about the time of Lance Robertson, I think that was still during the war years too, because money was scarce and beer was scarce. They used to put the beer on for about quarter of an hour, half an hour of a night. There wasn't much time. We were fishing then and we were catching barracuda for the army to be canned and sent to New Guinea to feed our soldiers. And old Lance, he used to love us because we always had plenty of money if we wanted to drink. And Lance knew that. For people who had the money, they could go out the front door and back in the back door, and away we went again. But instead of paying a shilling, we probably paid 2 shillings for a beer. That went on all the time while the war was on. The bay was just a moving mass of pilchards and birds diving everywhere, and the schools of barracuda. The bay was full. It was the main pub to drink at for the fishermen. It was the only pub that had the beer, It was a little bit rugged in those days. Oh, I used to like it there.
Well, it was a very well-respected hotel. I went there to work when I was about 18. It'd be around 62, 61, 62. The dining room was very elaborate, all starched white linen. The floor had to be polished by hand every day. The silverware had to be polished every day. It wasn't stainless steel like they got these days. We wore a white dress for our work. We only had one each, so we used to have to go home and wash it and try and get it dry by ironing it. The ladies didn't drink in the bar, they drank in the lounge. We had 2 lounges. One was called the Red Lounge and the other the Green. And I'll never forget one day, a lady that was working in the bar, she came out in the kitchen and she said, "Denise, there's somebody in the Green Lounge to see you." Well, I went tearing in there and it was full of sailors. I've never been so embarrassed in all my life. I just swung on my heel and got out of there so quick. About the noisiest thing in the bar was Mournful and his cockatoo. He used to walk around with it on his shoulder. Mournful was always in the bar. After work, of course. I suppose it was about 6:30, and we heard this terrible commotion and this bird squawking and screaming, and we all run in there, and the poor old cocky was stuck in the door, but it didn't hurt him, he was all right. No, there were some real characters. There's no characters left. Everybody seemed to be a character in those days.